Hello, just the contracted version of culture. So culture assignment is due on the 1st of August. So this is what I taught week 1 of culture. So it's basically from the book, looking at what culture is, which is the way we do things. And culture clashes happen when people don't understand each other's cultures. And you can see why, because Europeans more independent and naturalistic, whereas, for example, the African are more related to God as the creator. We're all connected and more spiritual. Europeans are a bit more scientific. So what makes us believe in a certain culture is the environment, the group, the behaviour, the values, and the time that we spend. Aboriginal culture has more of a symbolic importance as well. So we can see that Australia is somewhere out here. There you go. So we're English speaking, yes. So you can see that we're quite out here, which means self-expressing views. Right? And if you're way back here, then it's very traditional and secular, meaning religious, which you can see is places like Bulgaria, Belarus, Lithuania, Morocco, Iraq, Iran, Jordan. So once again, going back to this chart says that for individualism is important for Westerners, but for working as a group is important for Eastern believing, Eastern philosophy. And that winning is inside yourself, but winning here is outside. So once again, culture clashes can happen looking at these things. So 1 in 5 of us are born overseas in Australia. So 30% roughly of the population in Victoria are born overseas. So you can see a lot of people from China and India. So we need to understand those people's culture. Okay, so this is everything that you can see here, you can see in everyone's culture. There's always a good and bad. There's always divisions of labour. There's always some kind of rules for how you raise a family. So we're all the same in that respect. There's high and low context culture. So high Japanese, meaning non-verbal communication's higher. Low means nothing, basically like more Australia, German, American. What you see is what you get. But here's underlying connotations to little gestures that us Westerners might not be aware of. So high context, you can see Japan, China, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, France actually. And over here, yeah, this is also Europe. We've got Germany, but yeah, different. So check out this video, looking at the cartoon, like this guy doesn't understand because he's saying things like, this Barbie cost me an arm and a leg. So he imagines that an arm, leg chopped off. So I told the boss where to get off, meaning in Australian English, it means obviously to take a hike. And here's a can short of a 6-pack, means he's not too clever. He's tied up, means he's busy. I have a bone to pick with him, means I have an issue, I want to deal with him. Bury the hatchet means to forget about it. So this guy now is really a bit worried because he thinks he could have his arm, leg chopped off, he could be buried, he could be tied up. But that's just Aussie idioms. And how are you going, we say in Australia? In America, how are you doing? So accent and dialect. Accent is how we say a word. Dialect can be different expressions as well. Almost even a different language, sometimes completely different, but we still say it's the same language. So accent is a special way of pronouncing, whereas a dialect, yeah, almost a different language, but not quite. It can be, or it can just be slightly different words here and there. So you can see different accents here. Different countries in England and America, how they speak differently. And Japan having the da or the ja or the ya or the da ja or the da ja. Yeah. That's different. So this is main Japanese here saying da, which means in the past. But over here they say ja. And this little bit says da ja, they say both. Okay, so some words are different, American and British. In Australia we use the British way. We need to be aware of that. So communication, most of it you can see is from non-verbal, 55%. Paraverbal is intonation and stress, 38%. Actual, what we say is only 7%. You can read about that in your textbook. So in Japan, high context, obviously 45 degree is obviously necessary if someone is of higher esteem to you. If you don't do this in Japan, you will not be accepted. You won't know their culture well enough to be. So linguistic, non-linguistic, that means paralinguistic, which means intonation, stress. Prosody means pitch and length and loudness. Okay, so this can mean arsehole in Brazil, can mean okay in Australia, it can mean money in China. Be careful. It can also mean zero in Russia. Okay, so non-verbal signals, doing this is good. So prosody is to do with how close you are. Well, that's the same as prosthetics. Proxemics. Proxemics is how close. Prosody is the rhythm and sound of the speech. The stress. Okay, so all these things, synchrony, being together, imitation. So if you're doing this, maybe I do that too. It's more of a I understand you type sort of signal. Mutual gaze, so staring together. Body movement, so if you want to really understand someone, you're doing pretty much imitating the same as what they're doing. Non-verbal cues, meaning, you know, raising your eyebrows if you're interested. All these are important, all these things. So prosodic, as we mentioned before. Prosodic, that's the stress. So prosodic is the stress here, and paralinguistic is the eye movement, facial, hand, body. Okay, prosodic, so verbal component and non-verbal component. So the actual words we use stressed, and also can be a few utterances like fillers, like in Japan, or eto, in French, or the word like means nothing in English. So non-verbal language, how many? Well, here there's 9. So 9 ways to communicate without speaking. Expressions, gestures, well, paralinguistic can be the tone, that's not really speaking. Proxemics is how close, eye contact. Haptics, that's how much you shake hands, I think. Appearance, artifacts, symbols, and body language. So you might have a symbol that tells you that you're a bit of a rebel, for example. So altogether there's 9 areas that you can communicate. So haptics actually is your face. Okay, so non-verbal and para, you can see big difference. So most communication happens non-verbally. Para is the stress, pronunciation, articulation, pause, punctuation, mark, the speed. So non-prosodic vocal phenomena is the pitch. So you can say paralinguistics is non-lexical. So the words you say don't make communication, it's how you say it. So the actual words, that would be verbal communication. Paralinguistics is this the pitch, whatnot, but it can be the words, but the actual how they're said, not the words meaning. Okay, so paralinguistic, as I said, it's the modulation, so how fast, punctuation, meaning stop, pause, and cultural function, which means maybe going up or going down. I think nearly all cultures go up for a question, but for us in English, if it's yes, no, we go down. Like, will you go to the shops? We go down. Are you happy today? Well, that's a yes, no. So where are you going? That goes up. But if it's a yes, no, we go down. Kinesics is signalling. Proxemics is how close. They're both paralinguistic features. Yeah, and you can see here where it all ties in together. So verbal are these bits, and then paralinguistics is over this bit here. Paralinguistic and prosodic. Okay. So this is just a matching activity. We have to match this one. So proxemics is this one, personal space, and kinesics is this one, body language. As you can see, the answers there. Okay. And we talk about why people communicate. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 reasons why. Instrumental, you want something. Regulatory, to tell them the laws. Interact, to say, how are you going? Personal is you want something. Heuristic is seeking knowledge. Imaginative is, you're pretending something. Representational, so someone's told you something, you tell on. Diversity is jokes, bit of creativity. Authoritative is, that's the same, I think, as regulatory. But that's just like your rules, and this is maybe you're the boss. Perpetuating is explaining something that happened in the past. Okay, so Ken Willing, he said that from we have to learn, because if we don't learn, we won't be evolving as humans, and you need all these skills to learn. If you're a good learner, you're doing all of this sort of stuff. Okay, which you can see here. Okay, so, and it says that we need to be more autonomous with our learning. So you start off, the teacher has more, but eventually student responsibility. So you think you can do it alone, then that's the best way to have that mindset when you're learning. Okay, and talked a bit about VARC, which is all these areas. VARC questionnaire is homework, and that's all about VARC. And Diaz Magiolo continuum, saying everyone's a little bit this or that on a continuum. So more extroverted you are, more likely to learn because you're a risk taker. So intuitive, maybe sort of have a guess about things, more likely to learn. Thinking, feeling, really both are important. Perceiving, judging, both are important. Okay, and then we have Kolb's one where you have the feeling experience and then you reflect on it, and then you use that to think about how you can improve what you've been doing so far, and then you experiment with what you learned previously, and then you come back again, and it's just a cyclical round and round. So if you are an assimilator, you can be certain more of this sort of person than that. So most of us are assimilators, which means that, yeah, we're good at thinking back on the feeling that we experienced. So watch TV shows, videos, observe demonstrations, reflect, analytical processing. Yeah. So you've got to look at this questionnaire and work out your results. And if you're more of that, you need to do more of these things to be a better learner. Okay, you can read all about that. Howard Gardner has multiple intelligences theory, that either we're linguistic or so logical, mathematical, musical, kinesthetic, spatial, inter or intra. And if you are one of these, you might be perhaps encouraged just to go into the musical field, for example. If you work out, once again, he's got some questions in a questionnaire, and you figure out that you are that one, then you're more likely to succeed if you do a job that, for example, spatial visual people are good at. So, for example, an engineer. Intra or inter, maybe a psychologist. And there's these new ones that were added in 2006. So then there was Bloom. Bloom's wordings are used when you do an outcome, an assessment task. Okay, and 10 is the best age to learn. And looking here, so if you actually teach others, you will learn it more. 90% retention, as opposed to just listening to a lecture passively, 5%. So implications are that we need to learn it and then teach someone else. Stereotypicalizing is not good. Talked a bit about that, and then that was the homework and references. Oh yes, and going through the assignment too. Radio, and that was the cultural lesson that we did. Thank you.